Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. All right, folks, I think the audio is all working as it should be, but as always, please let me know if there's any issues with the audio or video coming through on your end, and I'll do what I can to rectify that. All right. Okay, well, welcome back to another Firestorm Studios stream. My name is Pat, and we're going to be continuing with our A to Z of sculpting in Zbrush. And we will be finishing off our Mothman creature. This will be I think it's the 4th session we've had with the Mothman. And just for full transparency, we have spent a little bit of extra time in between the streams just to get this to a little bit further on than most of the models that we do. And that's so that we can demonstrate and showcase specific things. So in today's stream, to finish it off, we're going to be looking at posing the creature and also hopefully just a little bit of paintwork as well. But I don't want to rush through it, and that's why I wanted to wait until I wanted to make sure that we had everything at a fairly finished state before we did this. All right. So, yeah, welcome back, everyone. I hope everyone has had a lovely weekend and that your morning, your evening, or your afternoon, wherever you might be, is going well. So let's just, before we actually get started on the task for this afternoon, hey, Holly, thanks very much. Afternoon to you as well. I hope you're doing okay. Hope you've had a nice weekend. Let's take a look at the model in question, what we've completed, where we're sitting at with it. So this is my sculpting material. We'll get to that in a second. I'm just going to switch this out for the more basic material here. So in the subtool palette here, you'll see that we have the antenna. We've got the body, and something you might notice is that there's a couple of weird polygroups on this, and we'll get to that in a second. And then we have the character's eyes, we've got the thumb claws, the fur, again, a couple of random polygroups on this, and then we have a rig, and we'll get to that as well. And then the very last thing is we have a lamppost. Now, I spent yesterday just putting together this lamppost. I spent a few hours yesterday just putting it together so that we have something to place our character on. It's not the most important part of our image, which is why I didn't really want to focus too much on it. We originally were going to focus on this inside of Maya, but Maya decided to do what it always does on a live stream and crash. That's one of the reasons, actually, I think ZBrush is quite popular on live streams, is that it just doesn't seem to break. I've never had much luck with Maya when I'm live streaming with it, or Marmoset. As much as I love Marmoset, and this final image will be rendered in Marmoset, it just isn't really great when you're live streaming. So anything that's really GPU intensive is really tricky when you're live streaming, all right? Yeah, Maya the weird thing is Maya never crashes on me that much when I'm just working with it, you know, but as soon as I start live streaming or demonstrating something, yeah, it just doesn't go well. All right. Okay, folks. So, like I said, let's get stuck into this. We don't want to spend too much time. We're going to hide the lamppost for the time being because we'll get to that, as I said, in a second. And let's take a look at our model. So one of the things that we did do in between streams is that we did a retopology on the creature. All right, and anywhere you can see a polygroup, we have an individual UV shell or UV island. So there's UVs on this as well. All right, and you can see that we've got a fairly well optimized. We could push it further, but for our purposes, this should be fine. And this was retopologized inside of Maya. And then we have reprojected all of our details back onto this. All right. And this is just going to mean that posing and rigging is going to be far easier. We don't need to retopologize it to pose it, but you will do yourself a huge favor if you do make sure that you've got clean topology, or at least lower topology. Okay. So, I want to talk about posing characters in ZBrush. Now, you may have seen a couple of different ways to do this. We've covered it a couple of times as well. And one of the most common ways to do this is using transpose. And we can use either just the standard transpose system inside of ZBrush, or we can use the transpose master. So for a little bit of a refresher, if you do want to pose part of your model, you can hold down the control key and go into the masking tools and choose something like mask lasso. I'm going to make sure that I have my symmetry turned on, and I'm just going to mask out the wings like so. And again, this is another reason why we want to retopologize our character, because it's going to mean that we've got far less geometry to have to move and manipulate, which means it's going to be cleaner and easier to kind of adjust the sculpt as we go. Because that's something you will have to do if you're posing in ZBrush. You will have to adjust your sculpt. Okay, it's very rarely will you be able to get one pose of a character and it be clean without any adjustments. The same can be said about any rigged model as well. Okay, that doesn't mean the rig is bad. It's just the nature of how rigging and weighting and geometry works when it's manipulated and deformed in 3D, is that you will have to do something to add to it, to supplement to it. All right, and that can be through dynamics, through blend shapes, through manual sculpting and keyframing. Okay. So anyway, let's hold down Control and click on the surface to soften that mask off. Now, if we invert it, we have the body mask and the wings, they look okay. So now I want to rotate these wings. I've got two options. I can go into the rotate gizmo here, and I can hold down the Alt key and I can move that pivot to where I want to rotate from. Okay, so now if I position it here, you can see that I can actually start to rotate and bring those wings in, like so. And I can rotate them down. And you see how we're getting a little bit of breakage here? That's just probably due to how it's been masked, and also to do with the symmetry, okay? Symmetry can always be a little bit of an issue when you're posing a character, all right? ZBrush gets a little bit confused sometimes, which is why you saw the breakage of those pieces of geometry. Now, instead of using the rotate gizmo, we could also use the transpose line. And this is ZBrush's older way of positioning things. So if we go up to here and turn off the gizmo, you'll see that our gizmo turns into this weird collection of orange circles with a few gnomons on the side of it. All right? Or gizmos, if you will. So what I can do here is if I click and drag, what I'm essentially doing here is I'm creating a bone, all right? Point A to point B. And the way this generally works is that this part here, this point A part, that's going to be where your object pivots from, or can be, all right? So if I now just grab this side here, grab the middle, and choose rotate, I can now rotate those wings up and down, or I can rotate them in the way, like so. All right, so it seems fairly straightforward, okay? It does take a lot of time. It can be quite tedious because you're having to think a few steps ahead as to how the character is going to have to bend and rotate in order to get into the pose that you want. It's why I always recommend creating the pose that you want in something like Z-spheres first, so that you can get an idea of where the limb needs to bend and what you might need to adjust. All right. So if I go into my whip folder here, you'll see that we actually have that. This is something that we created in the first session. We created this creepy little, this was originally Z-spheres, but in order to bring it in to this scene file, I just turned it into a unified skin. So it looks a bit creepier than it should. But we posed this using Z-spheres just to get an idea of how the character was going to sit on the lamppost, right? Okay, let's get rid of that. Now, something you might have noticed is that I was only adjusting the character body. And you can see what's happening is as I start to rotate this, it's leaving behind any other parts of the model. So we can't position the thumb claws or the head or the fur or anything like that at the same time when we're in this mode. So the only other option we have in that regard, or sorry, one of the only other options that we have, is to combine all of our objects into one mesh and then apply these same techniques. So to do that, we're going to make sure that in our subtool palette we have certain objects visible. So we want all of the objects we need to deform, they must be visible in order for this to work. Now, I'm okay with the lamppost being hidden because I'm not going to be scaling or adjusting that, all right? But I am going to turn off the rig down here. So I've only got my fur, the claws, eyes, body, and the antenna selected. So now I'm going to go up to Z plugin, down to Transpose Master, and I'm going to hit T-Pose Mesh. What ZBrush will do is it's going to take every subtool that was in our list and it's going to move it down to its lowest subdivision level, so the lowest amount of polygons that we have. That's another reason why it's a good idea to retopologize your models before you do any kind of high-end posing or detailing inside of ZBrush, okay? Dynamesh, remember, is a fantastic feature, but Dynamesh is for blocking. It's not for a final model. You should always be either retopologizing using ZRemesher or ideally doing a manual retopology in something like Maya, Blender, you know, TopoGun, 3D Studio Max, whatever, you know, pick your poison, it doesn't matter, okay? Now, we can approach this in the exact same way as we did before. We turn on our symmetry, we grab our mask lasso brush, and we mask out the wings. I'm going to move in a little bit further here and mask that out, and then soften it. Invert the mask, and we're going to do the exact same thing. Move our gizmo into the orientation that we need. Again, I'm using the Alt key while moving this. You'll know that your gizmo can be moved by the gizmo controls along the top. If I hold down the Alt key, you'll notice that the padlock disengages, and that allows me to move this as needed. Now we can just rotate, position everything as we want. And there we go. And the good thing about this is that if any other area of the model is overlapping, then it's going to be included in that rotation. So say I wanted to mask out this higher section here, like so. Now I can move my gizmo roughly up to right about the shoulder joint. And now as I maybe bring that back a bit more, there we go. You can now see that more of the body, more of the fur is being influenced by that rotation. Okay. And this is what I was meaning. You're going to have to make some edits after you've posed, so you want to plan this out as best you can. All right. Now, there's another option for rigging inside of ZBrush, or sorry, posing inside of ZBrush, and that's using the Z-Sphere rig. Now, if we just go back to T-Pose sub-T, and what this is going to do is once we're happy with our pose, we can go to Z plugin, T-Pose to sub-T, and it's going to revert everything back to the way that it was. All right. So now we're back into our individual subtools. And this is something that if you're new to ZBrush, this can completely confuse you, and do not feel bad if it confuses you. It took me years, and I swear to God, years to get used to working with the Transpose Master and all this kind of stuff to really feel like I could just go into it with no problems and it would work as expected. And it still has a tendency to throw a few spanners at you whenever you know, it likes to test you from time to time. All right. Now I'm going to select this object here. This here is a Z-sphere rig that I have based on my final model. And I think it's quite self-explanatory, but let's bring everything back anyway and turn on transparency. And I'll just hit Control F just to highlight the skeleton a little bit more. So you can see that I have a fairly thin rig. I've shaped out the spine. We have the arms, the wings, the antenna, all the standard things that we would expect. We also have our tail. Now, there's a few extra bones in here, one of which I think everyone's going to find quite amusing. And these are what are known as support bones when it comes to Z-sphere rigging, okay? Because ZBrush works in a different way from other skinning systems, or what you can actually edit, you're not able to really address the skin weighting the way you would in Blender or Maya or Max, okay? So what we have to do is we have to add extra joints from our Z-sphere rig in order to influence things and stop them from breaking or collapsing the way that we might not want, all right? So that's why I have a couple of extra bones up here in the kind of larger hump area where all the fur is. And then I have two extra bones at the spine here as well that come back and sit in there. Now, what I want to make clear is that this is not going to work for every character. You're going to have to trial and error this based on your individual character, all right? So if your character has lots of costume pieces with pouches or bags or things like that, you might have to add more Z-spheres, all right? Potentially, okay? And then obviously, because our character has some fur hanging down at the front, we have had to put in a support joint. And let's just leave it at that. We'll call it a support joint, and we're not going to focus on it. Firestorm, woo, Z-sphere rig. Yes, Z-sphere rig. I thought this might be quite a fun thing to kind of take a look at. So, all right, folks. So what time are we on? Okay, we're 20 minutes in. I know I've been doing a lot of talking, a lot of explanation over things. So hopefully no one's bored. But you really have to cover this information before we go on to what we're doing next. All right. And this live stream is recorded, so hopefully, Mario, you can pull out some shorter pieces of information that will actually be able to kind of, might hold people's attention a bit more instead of me rambling on, as always. Big shout out to Mario, by the way. He's our superstar. He really is. He does all our edits, makes us all look really great on camera, and he produces our live streams as well in regards to our live reviews and stuff. So yeah, he's a superstar. Big shout out to Mario. All right. So like I said, you're going to have to trial and error your rig from time to time. Okay. Certain things will work as expected, but when you start moving the character, testing it, you'll see, oh wait, that's not working. I have to go in and I have to add in my extra bones. All right. So, a Z-sphere rig, how does it work? Well, again, very similar to what we had before. I'm going to turn off transparency here. I've got the body selected and I have my rig. I'm going to go down to rigging in my tool palette and I'm going to choose select mesh. So I'm going to choose my body mesh. I'm going to go down to, where is it? It's been a bit funny. So I'm going to go to the rig, rigging, select mesh, and we're going to choose our Mothman, if I can find it. Oh yeah, my apologies. I always get this bit mixed up. So this is what I mean, folks. Even I forget things, right? So I'm going to take this, and I've been doing this for years, so I really have no excuse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clone out the body. Okay, this is why I don't like using Z-sphere rigs this often, because it's a little bit more involved. Okay, so I'm going to clone out the body. Then I'm going to go to my rig. I'm going to go down to rigging, select mesh, pick the mesh, and then I'm going to hit bind mesh. Okay, I'm going to turn off polygroups here. And now if I just grab the rotate option here, you can see that I can start adjusting the creature. Okay, we've got lots of different joints that we can rotate and we can position. Okay, we rotate around here, grab this part here, you can see that the leg is bending nicely under here, the tail is working. And then we even have the antenna, and we've even got the head here. So the head section, we can rotate, we can move it up, and then we've actually even got a section at the front here that we can grab just to adjust the front of the head, like so. Okay. It worked nicely. My last Z-Sphere rig blew up and made me question my life choice. Z-Sphere rigs can do that to you. It's another reason I tend not to use them often, because it's a lot of setup for it to then sometimes not work. A lot of the time I would rather just, if I'm going to the trouble of retopologizing a mesh, I would rather take the rig into Maya or Character Creator or any other kind of auto rigger or rigging system and just do it there. Because to me, it's, you're spending just as much time in ZBrush and then not really getting the same kind of payoff. But if you only have ZBrush, then this is a good way to go. Okay, so you can see that we're able to rotate this pretty well. Okay, now if I unbind the mesh, it's going to go back to the original. Okay, now again, something you'll have noticed is that's only the body. So what do we do when we want to be able to use a Z-Sphere rig on multiple parts? How does that work? Okay, right, well, let's go back to our full character here. Like so. Now, we have all the parts. And let me just turn off spotlight projection. I don't know why transparency is still on. There we go. So we have all of our parts. And the answer here is going to be, we're going to use Transpose Master again. So remember, the Transpose Master allows us to bring everything down into one piece and then position it. But how do we mix that together with a Z-Sphere rig due to the way that ZBrush works? Well, if we go into Z plugin and we go back to Transpose Master, I can hit this button called Z-Sphere rig, okay? And then when I hit T-pose mesh, right, what ZBrush will do is it's going to bring everything down into one mesh again, and it's going to give us a Z-sphere so that we can start building our rig, all right? But what if you've already made a rig like I have? Because I personally prefer making the rig in my other subtool settings, or sorry, in my other subtool. It's just easier to work with, all right? And it minimizes the chance of me screwing up and making a mistake, all right? So we're going to go back to our original, okay? Going to hit that R button up there to reset it. So what I can do instead is I can select my my Z-Sphere rig that I've made. So this is the workflow I use. I'm going to grab my rig, Z plugin. I'm going to make sure that Z-Sphere rig is on underneath Transpose Master. And I'm going to choose Store TM rig. Okay. What that's done is it's going to copy this. So now, when I go to Z plugin and then choose T-pose mesh. Oh, wait a minute. My apologies. Need to select the models first. That always helps. I need to go to Z plugin, T-pose mesh. So that's going to bring everything down again, and it's going to do the same thing as it did before. It's going to give us this Z rig. But if we go to Z plugin, I can hit paste TM rig. Give it a little bit of a second. Come on, there we go. Take a little while to do, but now, boom, we now have our skeleton that we made in our previous version and our T-pose mesh. So now I can turn on symmetry. It'll want to work for me. There we go. And now we can rotate. Oh, wait a minute, sorry. It'd be helpful if I actually went down to rigging and bind mesh. There we go. So now it's bound. And now we're exactly where we were before, but we have every single part of our model. And it's going to move a little bit slower, but it's still going to give us what we needed. Okay. And there we go. So that is how we set up our rig. Okay. And now we can pose it. All right. Now, what we're going to do here when we actually start posing it is we obviously need to, we're only going to be able to get it to a certain degree. We're never going to get it 100% in the pose that we need. We're going to have to do some edits after. This is just getting us roughly into that, that rough kind of position for it. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to unbind the mesh, should I say, and let's go back to our individuals. Looking cool. Thank you. Thank you. That's the next bit, is whether or not the next bit works or not. This is going to be the sneaky bit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the lamppost, and I have the lamppost set to stager. So I'm just going to go into geometry and hit switch stage, take it back to home. But I think what I'll do here as well is I might just make my life as easy as possible and roughly position the lamppost where I need it to be. Then I'm going to go up to texture, import, and reference. We're just going to pull in our reference for our Mothman. And we'll apply that to our image, just so I've got a reference for it. There we go. Okay. This is the bit I'm not sure. We could run into an issue here with the lamppost, and we may have to guess things, but we'll see. Hello, Pat and chat. I hope everyone's having a lovely day. Hey, Sigrids, thank you very much for coming along. And thank you for the kind words. Hope you're having a great day as well. How are we doing? Right. Okay, half an hour in. That leaves us plenty of time for things to go wrong. Okay, folks. I'm making sure what I have, that seems all as it should be. So I'm going to take the rig again. I'm just going to go back into here and this. Oh yes, okay, forgot about that. Okay, I'm just going to do another store TM rig just to make sure that it's copied into memory again. And then we'll go to the plugin, depose mesh. Oh, keep forgetting every single time I do that. I always forget to select the mesh. I do it all the time. So what I'll do is I'm going to first, this is the problem we have. So I'm now going to go to Z plugin and I'm going to do paste TM rig. And again, this is going to take a little bit of time depending on how complex your rig is, okay? And then this is where this is what I was concerned about. I was quite concerned about this because I've never actually posed a creature around something in ZBrush with a Z-Sphere rig. So I thought, why not find out how easy or difficult this is going to be? Which I thought would be fun for everyone watching to see whether or not it works or not, okay? And kind of just as a, look, it's worth trying stuff if you've never tried it before. You know, who cares if it works or not? Really, you know, and that's what it comes down to, folks. It doesn't matter if it works, as long as you try it, okay? As long as you try. So let me just go, where are we? Now, yeah, I have a funny feeling this isn't going to work, but you never know. Rigging, bind mesh, there we go. Yeah, I thought that might happen. Okay, I'm going to unbind the mesh. Okay, so we've ran into a bit of an issue here. I have to go to here, and I'm going to try and hide that, and then go back to this, and it's not going to let me do that. Aha! We have fallen into an issue here. So we found an issue with the system. It's not going to allow us to pose around this object because of the way that the Z-sphere rigs work. It's really focused more on the character itself and not the object. So how do we get around something like this? Well, generally the way I would go here is I'm just going to get the character roughly in the position I need using my reference, and I will adjust it using other approaches. So we have to, you know, something hasn't worked. We've got to adapt. We've got to do things a little bit differently. So let's go back to our original version. And I'm going to hide the lamppost. And we're going to go through everything again. So we're going to go to Z plugin, Z-sphere rig, T-pose mesh, Z plugin, paste TM rig. There we go. All right. I hope I will, and love the back feature every time to get your hands dirty. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now I'm going to turn off our polyframe because it can sometimes get in the way, I find. All right, and we're not going to be using symmetry at all. So first thing I'm going to do is, I need to bind the mesh. Keep forgetting that, folks. I keep forgetting that. Bind mesh. There we go. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is rotate out this arm here, like so. And we can see that we need to create a little bit of adjustment in the fingers here. And we're just going to pull this around a little bit. In fact, no, it's this middle one. All I'm doing here is I'm trying to match the 2D by rotating these elements as best I can. Pulling that in like so. And wherever you can, always rotate these in ZBrush, okay? Otherwise, I mean, it will work with other systems, but by moving them and stuff if you need to, but you're more likely going to introduce stretching or breakage to the model if you try just moving it, okay? Now, again, this isn't going to work 100%. It's not going to give us exactly the look we need. And just as I said that, I'm actually going to start moving this because that's going to keep the sharpness. That's where I don't mind there to be a bit of a breakage. There we go. And let's go back to rotate. I'm going to rotate the thumb around. All I'm doing here is grabbing the end and just pulling down to rotate it. There we go. I will go as slow as I can with this, folks, because I know that it can be a little bit hard to follow sometimes. Hey, Painted Dragon, welcome back in. So, what I'm now going to do is I'm just going to move this up here and rotate that round. Just start bending this in. There we go. What you will have to do occasionally with this in ZBrush is you'll have to move the camera around in order for the rotation to work properly. It doesn't work. The Z-spheres don't really work in the same way that a standard gizmo does. It is very camera based, I've found. Okay, and if anyone from Pixelogic, sorry, anyone from Maxon is watching and has a better way of doing it, then please do let me know. You know, so I am going to bring that down. That looks okay to me. I need that to be bent up a bit, that to there, and then let's bring this down, rotate it out. There we go, that's actually working surprisingly well. I'm not too worried about the individual toes, because here's the thing, folks, right? Once we've got all of this positioned, we can just go in and manually adjust it using the masking tools and all the other versions of posing in ZBrush that I showed you before. And that's why we took that first 20 minutes, half an hour to really take a look at how that works, because you're going to have to use a mix of all the features in ZBrush if you're going to get a really strong pose, okay? And to make your life as flexible as possible, all right? That's my opinion anyway. There we go. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I actually kind of just like that, that kind of cool pose. You know what? I actually like it so much, I'm going to save that as a version. So remember the rule. If you're saving a pose, we're going to go to File, Save As, and save a project. We don't want to save a Z tool, because if we do, we will lose all ability to get back to our original version. Okay. And we'll just bring the tail in a little bit, like so. Now, the support bones that I was talking about at the beginning, they are important, because otherwise the fur that's the kind of fur loincloth, if you will, between his legs, that would end up splitting and breaking off and following one of the other legs. So by giving it a support joint in it, it tells ZBrush that we want it to stay put. All right. And next we're going to just rotate. Oh, Mothman peeking around the thing. Keek. And we'll just raise that up like so. And this is where I now need to kind of gauge this. So what we'll do is we'll bring in this here, and we just want to line a few things up. Okay, so far that's looking not bad. I think what we need to do here is we need to get the character to lurch forward a little bit, okay? So we will, let's rotate him forward a bit. This is where I find out that I didn't give myself enough spine joints. And also remember that in some instances, you will have to actually, deviate from the original concept, because certain things will work in 2D and they will not work in 3D. It's just how it goes, okay? So just be aware of that. Sometimes you won't be able to get it 100%. The only way you can sometimes get a 2D image and a 3D image to completely match up is if you do some adjustment to the model at that specific angle, and then not, and that can also sometimes introduce distortion to the character. And when you rotate around it, you can end up with weird looking angles to your model. Not saying it's impossible, I'm just saying that it's, difficult. Okay. Another cool thing is that we can scale things as well. So if we feel that the heads actually needs to be bigger, we can scale it up a bit. Not by much. And you'll see here, we've got some strangeness going on in the chest area for the fur. So I'm expecting to have to readjust that, okay, when I'm done. Now comes the trickiest part. That's actually not bad. Get that in about there. Let's get you rotated. Okay, as I said, now comes the tricky bit. Is what we need to do is, you can see that we've got some issues with the length of the wings. That's my mistake. So that's looking pretty good. Now we need to wrap this other wing around. So it's like, how do we do that? How do we do that accurately? So let's just, first of all, I want to undo that, what I did. No, I want to keep that. The head that's bothering me. There we go. Let's just, I should have put a support bone in on the chest. Okay, you can see the stretching we're getting there. I can fix it, and even if I have to resculpt the fur, I will. But, we'll just have to cross that bridge when we come to it. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick save again. Save as pose 2. This is more just in case ZBrush decides to crash while we're doing this, all right? So next, I'm going to try and figure a way to bring this around cleanly as I can. So let's get our image back in. We've got a reference to work from. Subfusion. Hey, Z-Subfusion. Welcome in. Good to have you here. All right, folks. So we're coming up on the hour. So I just want to do a little bit of a refresher into what it is we're doing for anyone who has just joined us. We are hopefully finishing off our Mothman today. That is the plan. This is the last session for the Mothman, and we are in the middle of posing. And we've looked at different ways that you can pose in ZBrush, and we're now using a Z-Sphere rig to get our character very close to the final pose we need before we can then take it back to individual subtools and then tweak it further directly inside of ZBrush. So we've got our last little bit to do here, and I'm going to bring this wing down and then up, and I'm being very careful here to see how everything is bending. And now I'm actually kind of wishing that I'd put another joint in the forearm. That's kind of what I'm kind of wishing I had done. But it's okay. We will rotate around a couple of these points. There we go. That's looking all right. Oops. Oh, we have a question. Okay, bear with me 2 seconds and I will get to that. There we go, that's looking okay. Let's just bring that in there. We're going to have to bring this forward. I think. Just to clear the antenna. I mean, the thing is, I'm probably going to have to, I don't want to remove the antennas, but I might if it affects the final image. Right, let's get to the question. There we go. As a 3D artist, how do you understand topology as a beginner? How to understand it? Now, topology in general, that's a good question. It's one of the things that I think a lot of new artists struggle with. The understanding of topology, as in the ability to be able to take a sculpt or a model and know what needs to be fixed and how it needs to be created, a lot of that comes from experience. Okay, and I know that's probably not the answer you might have wanted to hear, but understanding topology intimately, for want of a better word, does come with experience. Okay, but there is a set of rules that you can follow when you're creating a model that will help kind of guide you on how to best create your topology, depending on what it is you're doing. So, for example, if you're creating a 3D character, okay, we can switch over to this model here as an example, okay? So, if you're creating a 3D character, there's a good chance that you're going to want to have to pose it or animate it. So in order for that to work as smoothly and as efficiently as possible, we have to have clean edge looping. Okay, so anytime someone talks about edge looping, verts, point order, box modeling, it can all be kind of put under that topology banner. All right. So what we need from our topology is for it to be efficient and clean so that when we deform a character, we don't get any strange breakages or artifacts on our mesh. And the best way to do that is to follow a basic set of rules. They're more like guidelines, I suppose. Not rules as opposed to guidelines. So with that, we want the edge loops to form a clean loop around any area that is going to deform. Okay, and the reason for that is if I mask this, we can watch it in action. So let's mask out this here and invert it. And then if I rotate this, I can show you. Watch what happens to the bottom edge of the wing as I rotate the arm up the way. Each face is going to start to essentially spread out or squeeze down. So it's either going to expand or compress depending on how it's rotated and deformed. And if we didn't have evenly spaced geometry that was created with concentric loops, what's going to happen is that along that deformation, the model will break and it's going to break the silhouette and it's not going to look realistic. Okay. So that is topology. And that's how I would understand it. Understand topology as a way to create a clean model that can be deformed cleanly and animated cleanly. Now, learning how to create topology, like I said, comes from practice and experience. And what I would suggest that you do is if you're just wanting to practice the topology side of it, and obviously that would require having a high-res model that you want to create or create the topology for, is ask around. You can ask friends, you can ask other people in your class if you're at university, or you can download free scan models from the internet and retopologize them. Practice retopology. That's what I would recommend. So that's how I would that's how I would understand topology. I don't know if that answers your question really exactly, but topology is a very wide topic, and it does have varying degrees of, you know, what it's for. So like I said, this is a character example, but if you're doing topology for a prop, then we don't have to follow the same rules. Not as much, because props are there's a less chance of a prop being deformed in the same way that a character is, but that doesn't mean that the prop won't be deformed. For example, it might have to be dented, it might have to open or animate in a certain way, and then that means you have to follow the shape and the form of that object in order to create believable shape and silhouette for the prop. Okay, and when it comes to like hard surface objects, again, you don't have to follow the same tight-knit rules as characters, but they do have their own guidelines and rules, depending on what it's for. Okay, I would honestly recommend checking out, like I said, checking out models that you can practice your topology on. Download a few base meshes, and even you could either get there's tutorials on it. You could look at a mentorship for character creation, and also look at animation showreels is another really good example. If you're a beginner, find some good animation showreels that have got wireframes, and it will kind of expand further on what I'm demonstrating here, where you'll start to see the edge flow start to compress and expand as the model's deformed. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question, Subfusion. If it doesn't, feel free to ask further in the comments here, or better yet, if you jump over to the Firestorm Discord and you sign up there, you'll be able to ask around. You'll be able to ask further questions, maybe even post in our whip thread, so that you can actually get some feedback and some critique on what it is that you're working on. Okay, and a lot of the Firestorm streaming team and the mentoring team are in there regularly, so you might be able to get a little bit more feedback than we can give you here directly on the stream. All right, but hopefully that helps. There's actually a book in my head at the moment that I think would be great for you, but I cannot remember the author. I'm really sorry. I will look it up and I'll pop it into the and if you come over to the Discord, you can drop me a DM and I can send you the link to the book. Okay. All right, folks. So where was I? Yes, we are in our pose, I think. There we go. Okay. That's the right one? Yes, yes. Okay. Subfusion, 2 thumbs. Good. Okay, thank you, Subfusion. I ramble when I'm explaining things. I apologize. It's just one of the things I do, folks. Honestly, I think it's why most people come to my streams, just to listen to me ramble about things and see if I can somehow make sense of something when somebody asks me a question. Okay, folks. All right, I'm swapping over my drinks here, folks. Sorry, my tea has gone cold, so all right. Where were we? Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay. We are just going to now continue rotating these joints. I'm going to turn off polyframe because the polyframe has a tendency to break up when you do the bind. I'm not sure why, but so I want to create this kind of cool, creepy folding going on. You can see there elements where I'm rotating it too much and it's starting to break. We don't want. Now, there's no guarantee that I'm going to be able to match it 100% with my rig. This is where I would go in with manual sculpting tools as well. I really wanted it to match 100%. And again, I'm going to break my rule here. I'm going to use the move brush because you might be able to see that we're not getting the same sharpness that we do in the image. And that's because the bind is kind of smoothing and averaging everything in order to get a clean deformation. That's why we'll have to go back in and readjust and sculpt the character to where we need it. So I'm just going to fix this thumb. There we go. And I think we're going to rotate that around there. So I'm going to have to change I am changing things ever so slightly so that it'll fit around and hook around the lamppost. There we go. Okay, folks. So I'm going to do one more save. Save as pose 3. The other reason I'm saving things as frequently as this is that I don't know what's going to happen next. Things could go wrong, things could crash. Jago Arts, thank you very much for the follow. Really appreciate it. And again, just as a little reminder to everyone, if you do want to follow and subscribe, that helps us out a hell of a lot. And in the bottom of the stream window here, you'll find all the links to our various social medias, including our Discord as well. And I think there is actually, yes, there's a link in the chat that you can join the Discord directly. Okay, so there's an invite there for you too. So the next thing we're going to do is, well, we have to now go back. We've got to go back to our individual subtools, sorry. And I hope you all appreciate the willpower it took me to not use a Back to the Future quote when I said we have to go back. So I am a product of my generation. I can't help it. Back to the Future is one of my favorite trilogies of all time. I say trilogies. It's technically one movie in 3 parts. Okay, so anyway. T-plugin, T-pose, sub-T. Now, this will sometimes take a little bit of time, depending on, again, how complex your model is. And you'll see here that now you should use Back to the Future reference pattern. This is also just part of the stream. You should use a Back to the Future reference. Marty, we've got to go back. So, me doing my terrible impersonations. So, right, now we have our character. He is posed. Our Mothman is posed. And he's looking quite menacing, actually. I'm quite liking this. So now, let's hide the original Z-Sphere rig. And let's bring in a lamppost to see how close we got and where we need to adjust. Because we are going to need to fix some parts of it. Okay? Okay, let's see here. Let's take the lamppost and see how easily we can get this in. The lamppost has got to go. Aha! I thought this might be an issue. This is where I kind of thought things would go a bit wrong. So we now go into stage 2 of our posing. All right. Okay. But before I do that, I am going to do a bit of cleanup. I need to do a bit of cleanup to the lower resolution sections here. So we're going to take the fur here and hide that, and I'm just going to start moving this back. I'm not bothered about symmetry now because the character symmetry is broken anyway. I'm just going to move this back a bit and just relax it. And one of the great things about the way that ZBrush works is that you can do a lot to the lower resolution. You can stretch the lower subdivisions quite a lot, and it won't necessarily break everything up the chain, okay? But at the same time, what this allows us to do is it allows us to go in and actually fix things, and we can smooth certain parts out, and ZBrush won't it won't necessarily ruin all the detail either, okay? So let me just clean this up a bit. There we go, that's looking not bad. It's survived pretty well, I think. Yeah, that's okay. Excellent. Let's see how the rest of it's looking. I don't see any major areas that are kind of causing me concerns. A little bit of thinning at the edges of the wings. So if that happens, generally just grab your inflate brush. And what I tend to do here is I will set the intensity and then I'll go into preferences and I will turn off my tablet. So I'll say use tablet, turn it off, because what I want is a specific intensity. And when you're using a tablet, because of the pressure sensitive nature of a tablet or a screen, you might not add the same amount of intensity to the whole part. Okay, so I just find this a little bit more controllable. Okay, so now all I have to do is focus on, let's turn on back face mask. I just have to focus on the area that I want to work in here. Let's just inflate the edge. There we go. And you can smooth it back as well. So you're constantly going to be inflating and then smoothing it back. Okay, and keep your smooth down low. And then occasionally you can also just do a light inflate up and down and follow the edge flow as well. Okay, following the edge flow is going to ensure that you get consistency. And because you turn off the tablet pressure sensitivity, it's going to inflate it exactly by a level of 4, so that you know that you're not getting a wavy pattern of thickness throughout your character. What's this? Oh derp! I never thought of that. I've ran into it with. I actually ran into it recently with a commission that I've done for a friend of a dragon model. And when I sent it to the printers after my 3D printer decided to go to the junkyard in the sky, they kept sending it back saying to me, the thickness in the wings is too thin for our system. You need to add thickness, keep adding thickness to it, okay? And that's at a professional 3D printing place. So I messed up the thickness between the wing membranes, okay? I think I should sculpt more dragons. I love sculpting dragons, but I don't sculpt them very often. Who doesn't like dragons though, right? Anyway, sorry folks, I'm digressing. We need to get into the posing because that's what y'all are here for. Okay, so what we can see here is we've posed the character, but it's not really sitting on the pole properly, but we've managed to get the hard part, and that is we've got the wings curved around to roughly where we need them. Now we need to go in and start repositioning the character on the pole, okay? And the only way we can do that is, see, you can see how far away we are. Really what we need is the whole character to be about here. But the problem is that the wing isn't lined up. So we have a choice to make here. We can either move the whole character body and then move the wing into position, or we can line up the lamppost with the wing and then move the body to that. Okay. So it's I haven't even decided myself yet. I haven't. That's why I'm procrastinating. I'm trying to make a decision. But first of all, we need to get into T-pose mode. So now that we're out of it, we can actually save a new version of the model when it's posed. So I'm going to save that. What time are we at actually? Ooh, 1 hour 10. I was hoping that we could get this in 2 hours, folks, but there's a chance we may have to go over a little bit. I do apologize. Maybe if I actually just stopped talking and did it, then we might get there. But, you know, my apologies. I need to come out of that. Something to be aware of is that, yeah. See, something went wrong there. If you're just going to go back into normal T-pose mode, turn off the Z-sphere rig, okay? Otherwise it won't work the same, because then it's expecting you to build a rig, Okay. There we go. Now I'm going to turn off the line here. And I'm going to do auto groups, just in case I need a little bit more flexibility. Or I can do that. But for the time being, let's mask out the lamppost. And then invert that. Now I can just move around. I can play with this a little bit more. See how that's actually working. That's not too bad. Now, because I know this is going to be a 3D print, I can cheat here. We can cheat. Now, what I'm going to do, folks, is something I wouldn't recommend. Okay, this is one of those do as I say, not as I do approaches to 3D. I'm going to actually manipulate the model. And if Heather, if you're watching, you know how badly this can go. I'm going to manipulate the model when I'm in T-pose mode, which is not always a good idea, okay? I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to do it for you guys, okay? I'm going to do it because then you guys can laugh or you can watch me die inside when it goes wrong. Or if it goes wrong, save it. Yes, save. That's a good point. We will save a pose, okay? So we're going to do pose version 4. And again, folks, I apologize if you can hear noise in the background. My street that my office looks out onto is very busy, okay? So we've saved it. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to, let me see here. Oh, no. There we go. We're going to hide. What I want is this section here. So I'm going to mask out this bit. Then I'm going to take this part and I'm going to mask this out as well. It's a bit harder to do. A bit trickier to do it in stages. And then make sure that I don't have any part of the wing selected. There we go. Bring everything back. Invert. And then I can take this part and just mask that as well. This is one of the tedious parts of doing posing in ZBrush, is there's a lot of hide, isolate, mask, and then that's where things can get confusing very, very quickly. I find this is what really throws me. So now I can take the leg here, and let's see, let's just move this gizmo. I'm going to use the gizmo more because I think most people prefer using it. And of course, see, I forgot to mask the lamppost. So now when I move the leg, the lamppost goes with it. Okay, this is what I mean. You forget to mask certain things. And then eventually when you do get it right, yeah. So now I can mask this to there. We'll just move that round to here. Not bothered about it going through the wing. And I just want to readjust this like so. Let's see if we can. I think that's okay. I think I can work with that. And now if I hide the lamppost, I can mask the top of the leg again. So the only part that I've got left is the lower part of the ankle. This time I'm going to use the transpose line because it's visually it's easier for me to pose. There we go. And now let's bring back the lamppost. And now I can rotate that out. And then around. Oh, wait a minute, what's going on there? Aha, so what I've seen here is there's a bit of a, okay. Notice something that I don't like, I'm going to have to fix because I'll forget otherwise. The foot has obviously become a little bit deformed when I've been working it the last time, so I just need to reintroduce a little bit more structure to the foot. Looking okay now. Again, I would go through and I would do a resculpt pass over the whole model anyway once it's posed like this. Yeah, that's okay. All right. So now let's mask out that and let's go back to our transpose line. Again. I'm not too worried about, I know there's this horrible bit here, but you know what? Let's just go in and smooth it out. Again, I really don't recommend doing this. Wait until you're back in the subtool version, okay? And do it that way. I am a trained professional. There you go, Mario. There's a good clip for you. What's this? In Maya, difficult to make stylish characters a beginner. I problem do sculpting in Maya. Probably to do. No, the thing is, Zbrush is fantastic to sculpt in, so is Blender, so is 3D Coat. There's lots of really good sculpting programs out there. You can make a character that's stylized inside of Maya and nothing else, okay? So, you can do it in Maya if you want, okay? There's nothing stopping you from just doing it in Maya. There we go. Heather's pointing out, Arcane, 100% in Maya. Everything in Maya. Okay? One of the things, folks, about creating a model in polygons only without going near sculpting is that you do have 100% of that control over how the edge flow works. So for example, if you have a character with very sharp cheekbones, etc., and things like that, then you're going to be able to control the topology and say, right, well, straight from the get-go, I want these cheekbones to be nice and sharp. And you do that by how you lay out your topology and your edge looping to sharpen the edge, almost as if you're doing something hard surface, okay? That's the thing, stylized characters with sharp kind of cartoony edges, you'd be surprised just how often some of the hard surface techniques come into play when creating faces like that. My first character was in Maya. Yeah, there we go. First full character in Maya. I think, do you know what? Things like this make questions or suggestions like this make me think that it might be a good shout for us to maybe do a showcase at some point of older work that we've done in the past. Myself, maybe other members of the team if they want to showcase what you can what you can do when you only have one piece of software, or you don't have ZBrush, or you don't have this, or it might actually be quite a cool thing to show. I've got several pieces that were all done completely inside of Maya. Now, to be fair, there were years and years ago, and I mean years and years ago. I'm talking, wow, I've just realized how long. Back in 2011, 2012, I've got models and images from there that would be good examples of everything you can do inside of this with just Maya and Photoshop, quite frankly. So, okay, anyway, folks, so we're continuing on. There we go. We've got the, yeah, I think we're yeah, I've just accidentally answered my own question. We're going to move the wing. We're going to move the wing. But first of all, I now need to make a slight adjustment to the character here. So we're going to go back into and hide the lamppost, and I'm going to mask out this part. Now, if you run into this issue where you're unable to kind of, get the masking set done, you can go to masking, and we're just going to grow it. We're going to go grow mask and then sharpen. And because of where I laid it out, it shouldn't, he says, it shouldn't interact with our knee. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So as long as you mask an area roughly, you should be able to then use the grow mask to kind of complete it, as long as if the two objects are maybe interpenetrating like that. Okay. So with that done, I'm now going to mask out the bottom there. Just do a quick soften, and then we'll mask out the lamppost. And I'm going to use the transpose line here again. And that's going to, oh, right, what do I not have included? What have I done? Oh, I've masked out the whole thing. Fool of a took. Right, there we go. Always do a fit check to make sure that you've only got the bit selected that you need. And then I can now, using rotate, I can bring this around, do something like that. And then lean the body back a bit. So, I think I'm going to do another quick rotate here, just to help, kind of make it look as though we've got a bit of a twist in the torso so that it can hook its wing around the top of the lamppost. Okay. I can fix the head later. Okay, and I think as well what we'll do with the lamppost is, again, I'm just going to cheat until I can make it work. I'm going to bring that down a bit. Okay, now comes the really tricky bit. Now comes the tricky bit. So let's hide the lamppost. I'm also going to hide the antenna. And the bit I want is the wing. So I'm going to hide that there. And put a mask in here first. Now, there is actually an option here to use transpose masking. So if I take the move brush here and I just hold Control and click and drag and do that, it's only masked out the wing, or most of it, and then I can just sharpen the mask. And then anywhere that didn't get captured in it, I can just quickly go and remask, like so. And then just do another sharpen, another fit check. There we go. The wing is now working as expected. We'll bring everything back, and then now we'll have to mask out the bits that we don't need. So this here, and this here, as well as the antenna. And then we'll soften the mask off, and we'll pull it back. And what I actually might do here is I actually might just cheat a little bit more and move the whole object like so, just to get it round. And then we're going to rotate it back like that. Oh, dang. Okay, so we've actually lost the claw, but I'm not going to go back and, or do I want to? How much do I need to? Yeah, I shouldn't be lazy. We'll just include it. There we go. I want to see how far I need to bring this back. So I'm going to mask out and soften this up even more. There we go. Let's bring that all the way back. Perfect. And we're going to cheat again. We're going to pull that down and in. Now, I'm going to mask out at the elbow. RIP claw. And I'm just going to hold down Alt and click on the elbow as well. And that's going to move my pivot point into that area. And then I need to rotate this into place. Okay. That's pretty messy under there, but there's nothing we can really do about it at this stage. So again, I'm going to take the lamppost and I'm going to mask it and I'm going to move it up. It's about there. Okay. Again, with the lamppost, I'm going to cheat a little bit here again. I'm just going to take, it's the fur. The leg's in the right place, but it's the fur that's not. So let's just mask out the fur, and we'll take our move brush and we will just move that in like so. You're probably thinking, but Pat, it's intersecting with the lamppost. It is. You're right. You're 100% right. But if I'm 3D printing something, generally I'm going to cheat like this. I mean, yes, I will probably go back and just rotate the hips out a little bit more just to create a bit more of a gap, but we also have to remember that the wing is going to be in front of this as well. So it's kind of hiding the crimes a little bit. The next thing I want to do is I want to fix the head and get that looking a little bit more menacing. So let's just hide all those parts there. And we'll get the head masked out. And again, we are kind of going quite fast. I mean, generally for something like this, I would probably spend a day going through it a little bit slower. But obviously we're on live stream, so we want to go a bit faster, you know. Oh, wait a minute. I need to mask the lamppost so that I can hold down control and click on this part here, and that will center our pivot a little bit. There we go. Alrighty. We're getting there, folks. We're getting there. Slowly but surely. We'll grab the transpose for the wing here. Soften the mask. I'm going to pull it up a bit. And rotate that in like so. See, I find this is the bit that's kind of exciting because you're starting to see the model really come together. There's a bit of a mess in here though. I'm going to smooth it a little bit. There we go. And then I'm going to take my inflate brush and I'm going to use the inflate brush to pull those together. There we go. Again, turn my tablet back on for this bit. And the next bit is going to be, you know, actually, to be fair, mask that out, invert it, and just move that away from, there we go, and just have that hook round a bit better. Then we'll mask out this whole section here. Invert it. Grab our transpose and bring it down. We're going to cheat a little bit. We're going to change the pose a bit just so that it works for our needs. I'm going to bring it to there, and then I'm going to remask, and then bring it further again. And then what I'll do is I'll take this section, soften it one more time, and I'm just going to rotate it like that. There we go. So again, I'm working with the limitations of the model I've created. It's not perfect, but that's not the goal here. Really, I'm not going for let's make this absolutely perfect. You can see that we've got, because I've smoothed it too much there, so I'm going to go back to my inflate, and I'm just going to thicken that out a bit. This is going to be really important. And what I would do is, while I was engineering it for print or testing it, I would go through and add a lot more thickness to the wings. I would rather they maybe didn't look as bat-like or as kind of creepy if it meant that the actual object will print properly. Okay, there we go. A little bit of inflation there. I mean, come on, I mean, we're all used to inflation at this point, right? Sorry, terrible joke. It looks amazing. Thanks. Thank you, Heather. Thank you. I think it's Heather that's on today. And now it's where it's me. It's me! The good thing here as well is that we can now start to go in and we can get away from the really clean CG look, which can sometimes happen when you're doing wings. So now we're starting to kind of add a bit more of that extra parts, the more exciting bits, and we can now make things look a little bit sharper if we want to. Just going to use the AccuCurve brush here and sharpen everything up a little bit. And again, I'm going to go back in here because I'm still not 100% happy with this wing. Hello, I'm interested to learn 3D art. I have a question. Why are you not using Blender? Oh, that's an interesting question. And I'm normally quite quiet about Blender. I don't say much about it. I think it's great to have a piece of software that's readily available for people to learn how to get into 3D. I think it's fantastic. But for me, Blender has never been a choice to use because it's too open source for me. And I know that sounds weird, but open source software has its own issues. You know, no software is perfect. But the honest answer, the reason I don't use Blender is just because I started with Maya. I mean, to give you an idea, when I first started getting into 3D, I used a piece of software called Bryce 3D, which very few people will know what that is. And then I used a piece of software called Infinity, which is even older than Bryce. And then I moved over to things like Amapi and Morphium. And these are all pieces of software that they're all defunct, they don't exist anymore. And then I moved over to Cinema 4D, believe it or not. That was the first real 3D application that I got my hands on, which was Maxon Cinema 4D 5.5. And I had that when I first started university because getting hold of Maya was really, really hard. You could only really get it through a student license at the time. Very, very difficult to get your hands on. But Maya is the industry standard tool. It was back then for just VFX and film. Now it's the wider one. It's the widest, most standard. And standards are good. I know that's not necessarily always a, you know, the standards are a good thing because it means that things are done in a more stable way. I'm not saying Maya is like infinitely stable. It's not. No software is. But it's consistent. You can, you know what to expect from Maya if you have a certain version and you have it written into your pipeline. You can't do that as well with open source software. It's not as easy to do. And studios, they rely on stability. They rely on, consistency. And closed source software like Maya, they give that. Blender doesn't. And that doesn't mean that Blender isn't used in studios these days. It is, of course, used, right? And there's certain versions of it that are not as, open that you can pay for. But that takes away the whole point of it being free, right? No, the honest answer that is that I don't really like Blender as a piece of software. I never have. It's as simple as that. I just don't like using it. And I use it for certain things. I use it for my 3D printing because there's a lot of great plugins for it in that regard. But for my primary 3D work, no, I don't tend to use it. I don't tend to use it. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't use it. All right, thank you, man. No problem. No. Again, no, that's the thing. I mean, I've no, it is just a personal preference, really, more than anything. Also, I should point out that when I started in 3D, Blender sucked. I'm just going to flat out say it. Blender was crap back then. Blender is as old as Maya, by the way. Actually, it's older. Blender's over 30 years old. It first launched in 1995, I think. But back then it was terrible. Blender's only actually become really good in the last 5 to 7 years. So there we go. So back then it really wasn't an option for somebody like myself to kind of approach. I wanted to learn the software that would get me the work. So that means that nowadays, if you're a Blender user, then great, because more studios are adopting it, indie and large scale. So it's a great tool to have on your belt, okay? So yeah. Oh no, what have I done? There we go. There we go. Okay, let's take another. Aha! I screwed up the claw again, didn't I, folks? Shocking. Also, Elegantito, great name. Thank you for the follow as well. Much appreciated. Always appreciated, folks. Is this the perfect time for Zbrush to crash? Wow. Foreshadowing much. Save as, pose 5. Let's just save it just in case. We're going to reposition the claw again and get that into position. There we go. And now I can fix the whole area because it's let's just mask out. There we go. I swear to God, my heart was in my throat there. I actually thought it was going to crash. Okay. Yeah, you can see areas where I've rushed it a little bit. We're getting a little bit weird deformation and stuff, but that's not a big deal. I can live with that. I'm going to use the transpose line again here. And just reposition that. Okay, oh, I'm using move, that's why that's not working. There we go. But actually, if you do want a laugh, folks, I would really recommend you check out, have a look at what 3D software used to be like. You know, you'll be amazed. You'll think, wow, how did you do anything with it? It's like, yep, But I do still stand by the fact that, you know, software didn't crash nearly as much when I was learning. It was mostly due to the fact that the production cycles and the development cycles were longer. I mentioned this the last time on my stream on Friday, how I think software companies should continue adjusting. Like Zbrush, for example, I think having a new version every year is a mistake. I'd rather see a huge year of patch fixes and then every second year do a big feature update. And I think all software should subscribe to that, because I think it would improve things for the consumer, because there would be less crashes, so people wouldn't be like, hey, my software's crashing, you know, and it would take pressure off the developers as well. So, okay. I think last thing we're going to do here is, and again, I don't think subscriptions are actually a bad thing. I think if they're handled well and they're affordable enough, they make a lot of sense. For example, I had a job recently at the beginning of the year where I had to learn how to do tracking again, match moving. I hadn't done it in years, almost over 15 years, and I needed a piece of software called Synthesize from Boris FX. Now, for the one job I was doing, I needed it only for the month. In the past, I would have had to buy the whole software and then only use it for the month, whereas now I can literally get a month subscription, use the software, and then never have to use it again. That's very useful for, when you're doing small jobs like that, okay? So, right, let's do a little bit more adjustment here. You can see this wing is definitely it's bothering me a little bit, but it looks okay. All right, we're going to do one last save, and then we're going to go back to, we're going to hope, everyone keep your fingers crossed. Let's hope this does not explode. Are we ready? Now, when I said, are you ready there, my brain immediately went back to an old song from Korn, where the opening is like, are you ready? Now, Heather will probably know what I'm meaning, and if you are of my generation and you're watching, you'll also probably know what I mean. But anyway, exactly. The man had good taste as well, Jonathan Davies. Man wore a kilt. So, let's see, here we go. Z plugin, Epo sub T. And we keep our fingers crossed that it doesn't. There we go. It's transferred it. Let's press. There we go. And we're good. Everything is in place. And the cool thing is that now there's a couple of weird bits. That's all right. So now we can go in and we can fix anything that is maybe not looking the way it should. It's going to be a lot easier because everything is in individual subtools now. If I've missed any areas that need to be reposed, I can do that now, much easier. So we can take just the bottom of the leg here. And go into rotate and just drag that out. Just do that with it. There we go. Perfect. It's sticking in a little bit so we could, hey, whoa. Oh, oops. Okay, not really getting this the way I want, so. But I'm aware that we've done quite a lot of posing, so I don't want to bore everybody with even more. So let's just do a little bit of manual sculpting as well. Just pull this stuff out. I also tend to do this if I've posed a character in this way. I actually think it's quite beneficial to go in and not keep the limbs completely straight, adding tiny little bits of curvature to things can just make things look a little bit more realistic. I know that sounds a bit counterintuitive, but I find it works. I'm going to fix that later because it was actually looking okay before and I've went in and ruined it quite considerably. That's actually looking okay. Let's see what if we do that. That's a bit better. Okay, that'll do. All right, folks, so do let me know if there are any queries or questions. We're at 1 hour and 45 minutes into our stream. I think we can go for a little bit longer today, just so that we can really finish off our Mothman. I was hoping to get to some painting today, but I don't know if we will. I've also noticed a mistake. I was too busy focusing on this claw when I should have been focusing on this one. Oops. Oops. There we go. Well, folks, I hope everyone has enjoyed this quite rambly session, admittedly. Quite rambly session. But hopefully there was a lot of information today. That was my goal. My goal today was to give you all a lot of a more focused amount of information regarding how to pose your characters in ZBrush. And again, this is just approaching it from a, if you only have ZBrush as your primary piece of software, then you can do a lot of cool stuff in it. You know, you don't have to be like, oh, I don't have the software that I can rig a character with. Well, you can do something inside of ZBrush directly. Okay, so let's now just going to use the AccuCurve curve here to sharpen up the wings. Ooh, this bit doesn't look very good, does it now? Okay, so let's mask out the bottom. We'll go into masking and we'll just do grow mask. We'll sharpen it and we'll just keep doing that until we get the area we need. And then we'll use the, there we go, that's better. Perfect. Quick smooth. And we'll also do a bit of an inflate because it will have lost quite a bit of volume. There we go. And we haven't really gotten to the detailing stage on this guy. That's something I can do later. There is some areas here that are a bit messy, so let's go in and fix those. There we go, that's a bit better. And we'll now start to add a bit more volume to areas just to hide a few of the crimes. And I'm back at this foot. There's always going to be one thing, and I always find this with the models I make, that there's always one thing that I always go back to because it just drives me insane that I haven't managed to kind of get it right. There we go. Yeah, that's bugging the hell out of me, that bit. Oh, something to point out actually, if you're using transpose, when you go through a subtool, the way that it works is it's actually going to keep all of the subtool history from your posing. So for example, if I go back here, actually, let's do it on a model that's not as detailed. Let's do it on the antenna. And see that as I move it, the antenna is actually changing position, okay? So it keeps all that information. So just be very wary of that if you're undoing on an object. You'll notice that with the lamppost there, it actually moved down. You can see it's adjusting and keeping its position. So, yeah, I'm trying to think here now, folks. I think we can maybe do a little bit of, should we do a little bit of painting? I think we should do just a little bit of painting. Let's just do a little bit. So let's start with our lamppost. We are going to just do a standard, I'm going to go for like a dark gray. Oh, also something that if you're not aware of it, if you are going to be doing a lot of painting inside a ZBrush, make sure you go up to the Z plugin and make sure you have the Z color plugin installed. Now, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to let me show you it. It's not. The stream, this is one of the issues sometimes when you're live streaming, depending on how a piece of software opens part of its plugin suite or some of its features, sometimes it doesn't come through in the stream because it's not captured by the display. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually grab a screen grab of it and I'll load it into and I will load it into Spotlight so that you can take a look at it. Okay. Let me just import this. And if you weren't aware of this, this is just to give you a bit more, a little bit more granular control over colors inside a ZBrush. There we go. So this is exactly what it looks like, okay? And you can see here that it's going to give us more control over exact numbers for HSV, RGB. You can save colors, you can set colors, and you can get various different palettes as well. So if you're trying to find that specific color, use the Z Color app. It will help you out way more than using the standard swatches, okay? So if you hear me referring to it, that's what I'm talking about, because I can see it on my screen, but you won't be able to see it, okay? And this is just to give me a bit more finer control over the gray that I want to go for, like a bluer gray, okay? Like that. And then I'm just going to do fill object. And then with this, I'm going to go to mask. And in the masking, I'm going to choose mask by cavity. There we go. Actually, let's undo that blur. There we go. And with that, I'm going to take a slightly lighter color and then fill object. There we go. I don't want to do too much with the lamp. I'm going to take these two objects. So these are the actual glass areas, and we're going to just make them a nice, simple yellowish color. There we go. And just to add a little bit of realism to it, we're going to take our paintbrush, a nice soft alpha, and that color. And then we can just paint it around some of the edges here. Take a stronger white for the middle. And we'll just really quickly block this out. Generally, what I'll do before I move over to something like Substance Painter or Mari is I will actually do a much more basic paint job inside a ZBrush. However, worth noting that in ZBrush, you can do some really amazing paint work with it. If you just spend a little bit more time than I am right now. We're just going to do another mask here. We're going to do mask by, don't know why the cavity didn't really work that well, but there we go. That's what I wanted. Yeah, again, I haven't really sculpted onto this, so it's not really picking up the cavities the way I really want it to, but it's fine. I'm just going to make that really dark. I'm going to lower the RGB intensity, and then I'm going to do a turn off the view mask and then just do fill object. There we go. That'll do. Okay. And then for the top section, we'll just clear the mask, and I'll take the paintbrush again. There we go. See, look how cool he looks when he's yellow. No. So what we'll now do is we'll take a look at, come here, there we go, at our character body. So it looks like he's got some browner fur for the main body part. So let's again open up our Z color, get the brown that we want. And that's just going to be my base. So I'm going to set that to 100 RGB. And it's obviously a little bit too bright and happy looking. So we'll step up the subdivision here. And now we'll go back into our masking. And again, I'm going to choose, let's see, what does mask by cavity look like? Yeah, we can see that we're getting a little bit more in the details here. So if I blur it a little bit, we get something like that. So it's going to find all those recesses, and depending on how much you adjust your blur, will determine how much of a bleed you get from each of those, okay? You can also change the cavity profile as well, if you really want to get into the weeds of it. Now, I actually want to keep those. Do I want to keep them dark or not? Well, what we're going to do is let's increase the blur a bit. There we go. So we get a bit more of a bleed. And let's do a darker color there. And then we get something that looks like that. Okay. Now, that's again just our base. So now I'll take the paintbrush. I'm going to switch that over to color spray. Change that to alpha. Let's do alpha 23. And then I'm going to take an in-between. And I'll just start painting it over. I actually even might go a little bit darker, actually. And just start to kind of blend them together a bit more. And now what you can do with this is you can start to kind of indicate darker areas of the fur to create a little bit more of a mottling pattern. So maybe we darken it down the middle, the back. Let's increase the intensity, like that. And then have it come off like so. Again, this is just my quick base, and what you're getting to see here as well is how I kind of prepare the final images that I post when we finish up an A to Z. So once I've done that, I'm going to take slightly lighter color, change the alpha to some streaks, and then I can start to put a bit of highlight into it too. And then to finish it all off, I'll take a low intensity color, a little bit desaturated, and I'll just fill the whole object in. And then all that underlying paint that we've put down is now got a bit of a wash over the top of it. And then you can almost just add a bit of occlusion in there if you want to, but it's a really good idea that if you're painting something in ZBrush or anything, don't have occlusion turned on, okay? Add that occlusion using the mask technique I showed you before, okay? I like to have occlusion on when I'm sculpting, but not necessarily when I'm painting, okay? Okay. And I think for the antenna, we're just going to go with that color. Wait a minute, why did that go blue? Intriguing. What's going on there? Strange. How odd. That's weird. No layers. Sorry, folks. Just something very weird happened there with the color. I'm not sure what's going on there. Anyway, let's get the rest done. Bring everything back. We'll just put the rig in the whip folder and get rid of that. And I mean, it's more of a kind of blue leathery color for the rest of the body. So let's just pull that from the antenna and do a fill object. Weird. Oh, RGB. There we go. And just to kind of break up the spec a little bit, you know what, actually, sorry, this is bugging me. I'm going to make the antenna that color. So we'll just hit V to swap the color. There we go. Maybe make it a bit darker. Okay, so to break up the skin a bit here, what I've also noticed is that it looks like actually the inside of the wing is actually brown. So we're going to take that upon ourselves, and we're actually going to take a slightly lighter brown and just fill that object. There we go. And I think overall I want to add a little bit of red. So I'm going to take the red here, lower it down, and then just lower it a bit more. There we go. Then I can take this color, the paintbrush, and we can now start to clean that up a bit more. So let's just switch that back to no alpha and drag dot. And I'll start to pull that together. There we go. Now, it looks as though we need this color and just clean up some of the areas around the thumb. And yeah, I think I want there to be a bit of a gradient, just a little gradient between the wing membrane and the actual body parts here. How are we doing for time? Okay, we're actually 5 minutes over, folks. So apologies. I really appreciate everybody hanging around for this long while we sort this out. And I think the next thing I want to do is add a little bit of, I'm just going to add a little bit of a change in, there we go. That's better. I'm going to add a bit of noise to the character. So if I go into the surface object here in the tool palette, go into noise, I'm going to be able to add increase the scale here. I'm going to lower the color blend. I'm going to be able to add some fine noise to the character, just to break it up a little bit. And then hit. But instead, now you've got two options here. You can either just hit OK and it'll apply it, right? So we can hit OK, right? So that's now applied, and you can see already it's kind of picked up quite a lot of the detail. Or sorry, what we can additionally do is we can do mask by noise, invert it, and then fill it with a lighter color. Let's just hide the mask. That's going to add a little bit of subtle mottling. Then we just go back to the surface noise and turn it on. And generally I'll just go in and increase that strength just a bit more. There we go. And then for the inside of the wing, let's add a little bit more detail here. So we're going to go back into paint. We're going to go to drag dot. I'm going to grab a deep red. I'm going to choose alpha 22. And I'm going to start. It's actually going to work for me. There we go. Strange, we're not getting the detail I need here. Oh, I'm on the wrong layer, that's why. There we go. Let's bring that a bit deeper. Just nice and subtle. Again, I would normally spend a lot longer, maybe another hour doing some of the texturing. And then on the outside, we can sample the color of the gray. We can actually start to break up the wing detail. Not really going for veins as such, but just breaking up in a subtle way. Just breaking up the wing texture. And the last thing I think I'll do is add some, again with the drag dot, we'll do some spots as well. Across the back, we'll take, we'll do the softer ones. So that's going to be alpha 7. Again, we'll sample the skin color, make it a bit darker, increase the intensity of the wing. There we go. Lower the intensity as we get to the outside of the wing. And just a really fast way to break up the skin. And then what you can also do, if you're not aware of this, right, if you've ever poly painted anything in ZBrush, if you go into your tool palette and go under poly paint, there is a where is it? An adjust colors palette. So if we hit adjust colors, it's going to open up this window here. And what that's going to allow me to do is, depending on the subtool I'm on, I can actually go in and I can start to adjust the hues and some of the intensity of my different colors. So I can really start to adjust my object. There we go. I'm going to unmask that. So I've just pulled out a little bit more color. Now I'm going to do an overall. I'm just going to increase the gamma a bit. There we go. And then the last thing we're going to do is, I think I'm going to take the eyes here, and we're going to do a drag dot of, where is it? Alpha 30. And just going to add a little bit of extra color here. What I'd quite like to do here with this alpha is I'm going to try repeating it. So I'm going to take the tiles and do 4x4. It's not working the way I wanted it to, ignore me. What I really should have done with that is, if I was thinking, is done it inside of the noise. But you know what? It's fine. It's fine. There we go, try that one. Oh, there we go, that's quite good. We'll do that, but you can see it's quite blurry, this alpha. So if we go into alpha, I can actually choose to sharpen it, like so. And that actually gives me quite a cool effect. So we're going to do that a little bit lower. There we go. And then we take that same red again. This time we're going to make it a little bit lighter, maybe add a bit of yellow to it, actually a bit orange. And then I'm going to take the same drag dot with the alpha and just, so let's make that go. We'll do the red instead. There we go. That's it, that's what I wanted. And then we'll switch that to white. Ooh, too much. There we go. All right, folks. I am quite happy with that. I think I'm going to darken the body down again just a bit more. We're going to take a really dark brown here, really low RGB intensity, and just fill that. That's better. There we go. All right, go to draw. And let's set that to, let's go for a 300 mil focal length. That's going to flatten it out, but it's still going to give us just a little bit of perspective distortion, just to kind of make it, keep it looking okay, without it being overly distorted inside of ZBrush. And I guess the last thing we could do is give ourselves a plane to work on, just to ground, oops, just to ground the lamppost a bit. And I think maybe I went a bit over the top with that 300. Let's do 120. There we go. All right, folks, save as 52. And we are there. All right, folks. Well, I think I should let you all get away for the rest of your Monday. It is Monday after all. And I want to thank you all again for coming along and hanging out with me while we finished off our Mothman. So, just as a reminder, if you are looking for a really fantastic community to join, please make sure that you follow our links below this video so that you can follow all of our social medias and join our Discord. It's a great community there, and you can learn a hell of a lot, and you can also get more information on the mentorships and other services offered by Firestorm Studios. This has been great fun. I really enjoyed doing the Mothman. I will spend more time on this to get it ready for a 3D print. and obviously I'll be doing a decent kind of render for it and for A to Z. And yeah, I guess it just leaves me to, I say that all the time, folks, apologies. It just leaves me to say thank you all once again. I will be back next Monday, and we will actually be starting one of my favorite cryptids, or mythological creatures, and that's Nessie. So yes, a little one from a little one that's a bit more homespun for me. So we will be doing the Loch Ness monster in some form or another. Don't know what that's going to take. I just know that Nessie is what we're going to be doing. We won't be spending as long with that one as we did with the Mothman. So we're going to be going back to our faster, kind of quicker turnarounds. And until then, folks, look after yourselves. Have a wonderful week, and I will speak to you all next time. Bye for now.